men and women and their loved ones get the full life they all deserve. Please donate now.
The Republicans are putting forth some very radical and offensive positions when it comes to women's lives, women's reproductive health, women's employment, women's opportunities. So I think we'll let the Republicans, go back and forth with each other. But I want to point out there's really not that much difference in the policies that they are proposing when it comes to American women.
There is at this moment no truth to rumor going around that Hillary Clinton is already looking into her post-election day options with an application to technical school in order to become a master at something she seems to have a casual knowledge of at the moment, how to... Perhaps the time has come to realize we're living in a time of political change that will be marked in history. The Trump era of political discourse can no longer be ignored, and we're about to prove it to those who both love and loathe the Donald. Next time someone on the left uses the phrase clown car about the Republican battle for POTUS, remind them about the specter of the inventor of the internet possibly returning. Then just hand them the makeup. And we now know what Hillary Clinton might be planning for an occupation if she does not become POTUS, a spokesperson for the best and most efficient computer hard drive cleaning service in the world. We approach a terrible anniversary with renewed hope for the city and people of New Orleans. So break out the etouffee and beignets. I'm Ed Berliner. This is The Hardline for Friday, August 14th, 2015.
Jeb Bush or Hillary or one of these politicians, all talk, no action, all controlled by lobbyists and special interests and donors. People like me from previous months, okay? Total control. Bing, bing, bong, bong, bing, bing, bing. You know what that is, right?
Tucked neatly in between every soundbite, every appearance, every controversy, every proclamation of love and loathing for Donald Trump, the biggest story is being missed, and it's smack dab in front of our faces. The American political system is undergoing an upheaval, the likes of which has never before been seen. We're living in it. And the future of America has been forever changed by the desires of the American people, and one billionaire following the simplest adage of all: give the people what they want when they want it, and dish it out every chance you get. Here's how you dig into history as it happens. Welcome in the associate editor of Sabato's Crystal Ball at the University of Virginia Center for Politics, Jeffrey Skelly, joined by assistant editor of the Weekly Standard, a frontrunner for conservative editorial takes, Jim Swift. Gentlemen, I thank you both for being here. And Jeffrey, I'm going to start with you because what I just said can be seen by a lot of people as hyperbole, but in my lifetime, I can never remember when a political discourse has changed so drastically because of one man. Is it not fair to say that Donald Trump has tapped into a true earth-shattering change in how politics will be run from this point forward?
I'm not sure I would go quite as far, but I do think that Trump has tapped into something. It's pretty clear that Republican voters, or at least many of them, want a true outsider to come in and shake the system up. And Trump obviously presents that profile. And so you're seeing pretty strong support in the polls for him even after the first debate.
But let's look forward a little bit, because what Donald Trump has done, he has made people say, this is what I want. He speaks the truth. He says things out loud. He doesn't sugarcoat it. Haven't we been so covered up and sugarcoated by politicians now our entire lives that finally we're hearing something different? And that is a change. Because, frankly, tell me if there's anybody else who's come out and said things as bold and as daring as Trump and has gotten away with it.
No, I think Trump may be in his own category there. He certainly does not have much of a filter, and that may catch up with him. I think something to keep in mind is that it's August, the year before the election. And in 2011, around this time, Rick Perry shot to the top of the polls. And in 2007, Rudy Giuliani did on the Republican side. And neither of them ended up being competitive in the Republican primaries in 2012 and 2008. So I think one thing to keep in mind is that we're a long way from the actual voting starting.
Absolutely, granted, we are a long way. So, Jim, let's take that. Donald Trump may not last. He may burn out tomorrow. It may take a couple of months, whatever. Who knows? But is it not fair to say that the American people, they've got a reality show going here? They're riding this right now. And would you not agree at least that the candidates from here on out, they're going to have to take a lesson from Trump because nobody's been able to connect with the public like he has so quickly and so effectively?
I think that's fair to say, Ed. I think we're in the part of the campaign where Marty and Doc went back in time and somehow lost track of Gray's Sports Almanac. And, now we're here in 1985 at Biff Tannen's Pleasure Paradise. And, here we are with, Biff Tannen running for president and just hitting all the right notes because he knows how to make all the right bets. But, Marty and Doc will go then back in time yet again. The Biff Tannen of the Pleasure Paradise will disappear and we'll return to normalcy. But you're right, though. He does have an ability to connect with lots of strange and random segments. And granted, what he says varies by the day. One day he wants to defund Planned Parenthood entirely. The next day he says they do a lot of good. The strange gymnastics of Donald Trump and the people who continue to earnestly support him, to me, are just something out of a movie.
Do you think, though, that politicians are going to have to take a little bit from Trump? They're going to look at him and say, all right, look, I'll take this, a little bit of this, a little bit of this, don't do this. But, Jim, they're going to have to take little pieces of him because, let's face it, we learn what succeeds and it's working. So maybe this will make them just modify themselves a little, just get a little more honest about what they say.
Yeah, I'm not sure they will take a little bit of Trump in terms of his policy positions because those are varying by the day. Those who say, oh, Trump knows what he's saying, I mean, he's a windsock. What he says from one day to the next varies slightly, and apparently the voters are too aloof to notice. But they will take from him, I think, the kind of Chris Christie-esque communications of not being PC. That's what a lot of voters like about Trump, is that he is unvarnished and he's just willing to tell it like it is. And, if Jeb Bush were to take the dual positions on Planned Parenthood that Trump had, the Trump supporters would say, what a rhino. But, Trump has done it, but he can do no wrong because he delivers it in a New Yorkian fashion.
You just opened up a fascinating idea, and that would be a ticket of Trump Christie or Christie Trump. But I'm not even going to go there because, frankly, we could talk about that for hours. Jeff, let me come back to you. In Politico today, the headline, insiders say that Donald Trump cannot win the early states. This is 6 in 10 Republican insiders say he can't do it. Iowa, New Hampshire. Now, granted, these are people, again, just looking forward, but how can we say that? These are the same people who very likely have said in the past that he wouldn't be this far along, would never lead the polls. You can't underestimate this guy.
I think it's pretty clear that Trump shouldn't be underestimated. However, it is very true that at this point in the cycle, what people are saying in surveys isn't really going to tell you very much about what's going to happen in January, February, when the voting actually starts. There's actually a really interesting report from Pew about how many people are actually paying attention at this point. And they estimated based on the past and what they've found in surveys so far this year is that probably about 20% of the people who will actually be voting in November 2016 are actually paying attention right now. And so generally speaking, there are a lot of people in the electorate that aren't paying attention, and a small number of people show up and vote in primaries and caucuses as it is.
Jim, it's a good point, I think, that Jeffrey brings up here. It's so early. There are so many polls to go. There's so many caucuses left to go. So as we play these mental gymnastics here, don't we need to just keep, every time we talk about Donald Trump or whomever, Hillary Clinton, whatever, say, it's early, guys. Things will change by this time next year. That is history. Yes?
Yeah, and I love Larry Sabato, his senator at Virginia, and the crystal ball. And I think the report that they put out was exactly right. Donald Trump is a second-tier candidate that has no chance of becoming president. He is a flash in the pan right now that people like, but the more people and voters learn about his past, I mean, he took bailouts from the state of New Jersey's Gaming Commission to keep the Taj Mahal alive. He was known as the king of tax abatements. What consistent conservative Tea Party supporter is going to rally behind, someone who's taking bailouts and handouts from the government. It's bizarre, but I think a lot of voters just don't know that. And as Donald Trump, unless he self-implodes, we're going to see some of these campaigns point out these inconsistencies. And it's not just the recent, saying this here and saying that there. Verbal slips that he suffers from. I mean, he is not a consistent, principled candidate.
We have to remember, though, and you mentioned it earlier, you talked about Back to the Future and Biff Tannen. All I can think of is if the Chicago Cubs win the World Series this year, then we are all going to be eating our words here very quickly. Jeffrey Skelly and Jim Swift, I want to thank you both for joining us, gentlemen. Always a pleasure. We'll talk to you again soon. As I said, we got a long way to go. Now, we've talked about Donald Trump and